The reality of it is this. If no one that I know is against finding waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. However, the way that you go about doing it, you don't play with Americans' lives, you don't play with their jobs, you don't do things haphazardly where you have to fire people, then bring people back.
Can you name one thing you'd do differently?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to The Common Thread. So, much to Scott Jennings' disappointment, Anna Navarro somehow made her way back onto the CNN panel. And let me tell you, she did what she always does. Rambled nonstop about how much she hates Trump and Doge, barely making any sense the entire time. Scott just sat there, waiting it out, probably trying not to fall asleep. But once she finally wrapped up whatever that rant was supposed to be, Scott came alive and absolutely shredded the entire panel. And yeah, he even took down Anna Navarro and her ridiculous, over-the-top performance. Let's get into it.
Yeah, y'all got to bench Elon, man. Y'all gonna have to bench Elon. Elon is not going to be long for this world as a major American political figure. I watched his interview with Fox. He said, during the interview, he said, I don't know why I have to do this. He's annoyed at the perch that he is on right now and the way he's being perceived. He's opened himself up to a level of scrutiny that I don't think that he's going to be able to bear. I don't think so.
Well, his companies are certainly having a hard time.
Well, listen, I don't think we're going to have to pass the hat for Elon Musk. The guy's worth $300 billion. Do the math. If he put his money in tax-free government bonds, he would get $15 billion a year without touching the principal. So these setbacks that people are so concerned about, I wouldn't worry about it. I think it's patriotic what he's doing. I think that he's a disruptor. I think he is looking for fraud, corruption, and waste. And you know what? If we find fraud, corruption, and waste, and we end it, then we have more money for hospitals. We have more money for education. We have more money for infrastructure. Is that a bad thing?
I'll tell you what is not.
Let me tell you what is actually doing that, but there's not a lot of evidence.
I'll tell you what is bad and what is not patriotic is calling Mark Kelly a traitor. He called him a traitor today for having gone and visited Ukraine, which many Republicans and Democrats in Congress and in the Senate have done in the last several years. Mark Kelly is a naval aviator. He flew missions in the Gulf War. He has logged over 5,000 hours flying for the Navy. He then went on to be the pilot for the space shuttle. He serves in Congress. Elon Musk has absolutely no right, who has never served this country, who serves a president who made up a story about bone spurs so he could avoid the draft, has absolutely no right to call Mark Kelly, who is a patriot, who has served this country to the point of risking his life, and calling him a traitor. That is something we should all condemn.
I don't like that kind of language from either side, and it's gotten out of hand. I think that the discourse now...
I've had to do this a lot of times on the show, but like, I guess it's very easy to say either side to every single thing, but in response to what she said, what do you say about what Elon has to say?
Well, first of all, I would never denigrate somebody who served our country and call them a traitor unless I had material evidence that they were actually a traitor. So I think that Elon Musk is not a politician. He's not somebody that is what we would say politically astute. But I think he serves a great purpose in uncovering fraud, corruption, and waste, and I think it's a patriotic act on his part.
Look, I spent 5 years in City Hall working on government efficiency projects, and here's my advice for Elon. It's one thing to talk about efficiency, but what people actually care about, as you know, sir, as a local official, they care about efficacy.
Look, I've got nothing but respect for our military. Seriously, I'm probably one of the biggest supporters of our service members you'll meet. But here's the thing. You can absolutely respect someone's service and still call out their bad takes or bad politics. That's what grown-ups do. And that's really all Elon was doing, giving his opinion whether you agree with him or not. Meanwhile, CNN was busy wasting everyone's time, again, blowing up something that really isn't a story. And don't even get me started on Anna Navarro's performance. Her outrage act? Completely unconvincing. It was loud, dramatic, and honestly, just embarrassing to watch. Hate to break it to her fan base, but if that was her big shot at a dramatic political moment, it flopped. Badly. One of her weakest performances yet. Let's get back to it.
So if you look on the Doge board, it just shows how much they're cutting from the federal government. How about a board that shows how long passport times are taking, that shows how quickly people in the Veterans Affairs are getting their benefits? That's what people actually care about. And if he does that board and shows that he's making progress on that, that's showing that government is actually working for people. I think everyone here can get behind that.
Scott?
I think on the entitlement issue, which you played the president is in charge, he has made it perfectly clear he is not touching Social Security, Medicare, and even Medicaid, other than to say if there is fraud in any program, he'd like to root out the fraud. That's period. He's the president. The buck stops with the president. He's been clear about that since he started running in 2015.
I mean, Republicans are getting ready to cut a lot from Medicare.
Well, you call it cuts. They're calling it could be slowing the growth of the program or rooting out fraud, but that's different than cuts.
Well, here's the reason. Here's the reason I have a lot.
$880 million worth of fraud.
Yeah, and I have a lot of reason to doubt what you're saying because when
let me tell you something. There's a huge able-bodied population in this country that should not be on welfare. That is a true story.
Okay, first of all,
well, that's actually not true.
Hold on a second. Welfare is not the biggest driver of this, actually. But what I'm saying is that DOGE has put all this money on the board, and they've said, "Oh, this is waste, fraud, and abuse." And when you really look at it, they're just programs that that Elon and the president and random 20-something-year-olds don't like. So when you say fraud and abuse, there's not a lot of evidence.
The first word is usually waste, and they consider it to be waste.
Do you think
they are not actually doing that? When Congress authorizes money for a program or a program is duly authorized, that's not waste, fraud, and abuse. That's just something you don't like.
Abby, everybody wants to find waste, fraud, and abuse until somebody actually does it.
Do you think people...
This is the problem. This is the problem. They're actually saying, okay, maybe this is wasteful.
Hold on for a second.
And then Washington goes crazy.
That's untrue. It's been done. The Clinton administration was able to put together an
30-something years ago?
Right, but the point of it is the way that
never happened, and it definitely
it's been done. But the way that they went about it was to study it for 6 months and then to take a longer time to understand which government jobs needed to be rooted out. He fired a bunch of people. He ended with a budget. It's been done. It's just the way that you guys are doing it.
I know.
Is
and the way that we're doing it is that you don't want us to do it. In 2019, we spent $4.4 trillion as a government. Last year, we spent $6.2 trillion. The government's gotten more expensive and much larger over the last 5 years. The only question Republicans have is, does it have to be this large and does it have to be this expensive? That's the question. And Elon's finally trying to cut into it, and the Republicans in Congress need to help.
Well, you guys should start it in your own house because your president drove up the deficit as much as anybody ever has, maybe more than anyone.
And why? What happened at the end of Trump?
So then,
any memory of it?
I do remember. Even before then, though. Even before that, though. Everybody's got Google. So the reality of it is this: if no one that I know is against finding waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. However, the way that you go about doing it, you don't play with Americans' lives, you don't play with their jobs, you don't do things haphazardly where you have to fire people. Then
can you name one thing you do differently?
One thing I do differently?
You say
no one I know. Look, nobody I know is against cracking down on waste, fraud, and abuse in government. Seriously, that's not the issue. The real problem is how it's being done. You don't just carelessly mess with people's jobs and lives to prove a point. That's not leadership. That's recklessness. And when people get called out for it, they can't even name what they do differently. It's like, okay, you hate the cuts, but where's your solution? Everyone's got something to complain about until it's time to offer an alternative. Then there's this other crowd, always upset about what's being cut. But don't realize, if we waited for everyone to agree on every cut, nothing would ever get done. Some people oppose everything just because it came from Elon or Trump. They don't even know why they're against it. They just are. It's automatic. And when you break it down, only a tiny group actually understands how these agencies work, what's waste and what isn't. And I can guarantee you, it's definitely not the folks shouting the loudest on TV. It's certainly not these people.
You're going to make me in charge of those.
No, I'm asking.
Okay.
You say you're against waste, fraud, and abuse. What would you consider the government to do that's wasteful today?
Okay, well then what I would do if I was looking for waste, fraud, and abuse is I would start in the Defense Department and at the Pentagon. I would start with the defense industrial complex of America, and I would look there.
I think Elon and you were in agreement on that.
Well, he hasn't.
The
question is, when are they going to get around to it?
Because the president already told them to do it.
Park rangers.
Hold on. One of the other things, you started your comment by saying the president's in charge. He's not going to touch Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. That's where all the money is, Scott, which is why
we're fighting over 28%.
He said he wasn't going to cut entitlements.
No.
They are going to look for fraud in Medicaid.
Bruce,
they are going to look for fraud in Medicare.
I'm telling you what Scott said. Scott said that he wasn't going to touch it. Elon said, correctly, that's where all the money is. So if you guys actually want to produce savings, you are going to have to touch it.
Actually, we started this segment talking about the fact that the president's closest aide, the guy who's attached at the hip to him, Elon Musk, called an American hero a traitor today.
Okay, but you said that already.
No, because you haven't condemned it.
What does that got to do with it?
Because that's what this segment was about, actually, and you haven't condemned it. Because you want to talk about something else instead of condemning what is condemnable.
I will say that Bruce did, well, maybe I shouldn't go so far as to say condemn, but you said that you do not condone
like it.
that kind of
Bruce
language.
basically said chill.
So
like it.
he did say that, but
Let's talk what this is actually doing. I think the people who are paid to ID bodies of people killed in action who can't work right now are not waste, fraud, and abuse. I think that these kind of things that we're seeing, the people who oversee our nuclear stockpile are not waste, fraud, and abuse. These mistakes can't happen. It's too critical to our
The
country.
veterans who we promised we would protect.
We'll never,
when they
we
came
will
back.
never, we will never spend unless some administration has the guts to see this through. We will never ever spend less. We will never have a smaller government.
I take your
Everything
point.
has a constituency
I take your
in
point
Washington.
about finding the spending that you want to cut, but I think there's no question, even Republicans agree, and we talked about this last week, this has been done in a haphazard way to the point where the president himself had to hear it from his cabinet secretaries who were asking, what's happening at the VA? Why are you cutting all these people? The transportation secretary said they were trying to cut air traffic controllers.
I hope the cabinet, I hope the cabinet and Elon
they had to speak up
work
because
well together. The
it
cabinet
wasn't
just
being
got
done
there,
well.
but ultimately, this is not a conversation that can be put off forever. And I feel like this is what Washington does. They try to just push it back as far as they can, and then we'll get the next guy in, and maybe it won't happen. That's how you go from $4.5 trillion to
But
$6.2
Scott,
trillion.
even
in 5 years.
Republicans have begun saying that it needs to be a scalpel, not a sledgehammer.
Yes,
and
and
it has been a
and as-
sledgehammer.
Look, nobody I know is against cracking down on waste, fraud, and abuse in government. Seriously, that's not the issue. The real problem is how it's being done. You don't just carelessly mess with people's jobs and lives to prove a point. That's not leadership. That's recklessness. And so Anna wants someone on the panel to condemn Elon Musk for something he said? All right, fair enough. But if we're playing that game, how about you go first, Anna? You want people to denounce something? Then you go ahead and denounce the BLM riots. Denounce the threats outside Brett Kavanaugh's house. Call out Antifa. You want accountability? Let's make it go both ways. We've already condemned January 6th. We've said it plain and clear. So now it's your turn. Just pick one thing the far left has done wrong. Just one. But of course, they never will. Because for them, accountability is only a one-way street. And before I wrap this up, let me just say, I've been covering a lot of Doge-related stories lately, and suddenly I'm noticing this wave of performative support for veterans coming from Democrats. Don't fall for it. Don't let them play you. They're clearly trying to emotionally anchor veterans to the programs they don't want touched, painting every spending cut as an attack on our troops. But that's manipulation, plain and simple. You could do that with any word. Watch this. I could say, Doge doesn't care about mothers because some of the people who lost their jobs were moms. See how cheap that sounds? They think the public is too dumb to see through it, but we're not. Scott Jennings said it best. Unless someone in power has the guts to actually follow through, we're never going to shrink the size of this government. All this outrage is just smoke to make us look away while they kick the can down the road again. And make no mistake, that's what this is all about, distraction. Keep people angry, confused, and tuned in so no one asks the real questions. But we're not buying it. Anyway, what did you think about Anna Navarro's latest meltdown? And Scott Jennings, holding it down once again and keeping the conversation grounded? What's your take? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy watching people like Anna Navarro trip over their own talking points for 10 minutes straight, go ahead and check out one of the other videos popping up right now. Otherwise, as always, I've got the smartest, sharpest viewers out there. I truly appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to hang out with me. It means a lot. Never forget, Jesus loves you. I'll see you next time.